All right, who you got?
Devonta Freeman. Question mark.
Sure.
Okay.
I want to put a question mark on it because I was really encouraged by his share of the work in the rushing and passing game in Latavius Murray's first game back. And I do think there's a chance he's just going to get J.K. Dobbins' workload the rest of the year, which he's not J.K. Dobbins, but that would make him a number 2 running back that you start.
Yeah. He could be a luxury for a lot of fantasy managers.
Exactly. So. No one drafted him. He's probably on the bench for a bunch of people.
Man, he's in my starting lineup in like 17 leagues.
Yeah, there are people who are desperate for running backs, and he's coming off of a really good game where a lot of his production came really, really late without the Ravens' best offensive player on the field. That's a terrific sell high.
Tyler Huntley had 7 carries in that game. I'm going to assume Lamar Jackson averages more than that.
About 12.
About 12. So, yeah, take that into account as well. Okay. I had let me go back to buy lows here. We didn't do that, but what do you think about Joe Burrow? He's got 2 crap games in a row, 7 points against Cleveland, 10 at Las Vegas. His first 8 games, 22 or more fantasy points in 7 of 8 games, 25 or more in 4 of 8 games. And that was when they started throwing the ball more, but it's also very favorable matchups. I would easily say Burrow, but I don't love his schedule. Pittsburgh this week, see how healthy they are. Chargers, Niners, Broncos, Ravens, that's a good matchup. Chiefs in week 17, that's not such a good matchup anymore. Mm-hmm. So I guess I'd say at the best, I call it a neutral schedule for Burrow. Would you guys buy low on him? Or I guess in other words, how much faith do you have in him going forward?
Some. I've got some faith in him. If I'm toiling with Russell Wilson as I am in a couple of my leagues and I could trade for Burrow cheaply, I would do it. The problem is that I think the people who have Joe Burrow on their fantasy teams might have tied themselves to him already, and they wouldn't give him up for what someone who's looking to buy low on him would pay. So I think it really comes down to, is Burrow, a backup quarterback for somebody in your league? That's the type of way to get him cheaply in a trade. Well, otherwise, if someone's starting Joe Burrow, they're not going to give him away for Devonta Freeman. They're not going to give him away for, they might not give him away for Devonta Smith. And I don't know if there's a big difference between Smith and Freeman. I think people are going to overvalue Burrow.
Where's Burrow amongst quarterbacks in the trade chart? I guess, which is a fancy way of saying where's Burrow in your rest of season quarterback rankings? Because
he's still top 12,
but no question 12th, about it.
Yeah, he's probably closer to 10. If I'm just looking, if you want me to count it out, he's 9th. Actually, he's 10th. He's 10th. He's tied for 9th with Jalen Hurts. And I think a lot of people would much rather have Hurts than Burrow at this point.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's like the trade I was envisioning was either 1, Cam Newton for Joe Burrow, or 2, Tom Brady and RB2 for Joe Burrow and RB1, or if you don't want to go that high,
you'll never get that right. It's going to be more like Burrow and a bench player for Brady.
The first trade you said, the Cam Newton for Joe Burrow, that's kind of where I would like. I don't think anybody's giving Joe Burrow up for backup quarterback value, but if they are, I would make that trade. But he also
people don't see Cam that way. That's we're doing a poll right now because I want to see who do you like better rest of season, Cam or Burrow. I suspect people are pretty pumped up about Cam Newton.
I think it's pretty close to a coin flip
between the two of them.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think Cam's going to be a borderline number 1. And I don't think we have much reason to think Burrow will be much besides a borderline number 1.
But that's another sell high is Cam Newton, because there was excitement about him to begin with, and he's coming off of a 3-touchdown game. And I know his schedule is really good in the next few weeks. 2 of his next 3 games, at least, I think we like it. But I don't know if he's 3 touchdowns every week.
How many of Cam's throws have you watched? Did you watch them all?
All.
I really thought he threw the ball a lot better than I expected him to.
He did, but he also threw it a lot shorter, and he was definitely more of like get the ball out quick mode and stay in rhythm mode and have good timing with your receivers mode. So
and he did those things for the most part, right?
He did all of them, but he's not really attacking downfield. So you've got to count on him staying efficient, moving the chains, and throwing a lot in order to come through for like good yardage, or you need him to have 3 total touchdowns in a game.
Okay, well, we have 27 votes right now, and 2/3 of them, almost 2/3, are Cam Newton over Joe Burrow. So
course.
just
Wow.
keep track on that.
It's
All right,
what have you done for me lately?
let me give some more names here and let me know what your thoughts are. I've got more sell highs. Michael Pittman, I don't know if he's a sell high. I just don't, because he's it's not coming off a good game or anything. But bottom line is, I really hate the schedule. The Bucks are his matchup this week. I don't know how you guys feel about him. It is somewhat of an opponent's thing, but the Bucks have not given up more than 70 yards to a wide receiver since week 3. They haven't given up more than 60 yards to a wide receiver since week 4, and they have given up 2 receiving touchdowns to a receiver in their last 7 games. Sorry, they've played 10 games, so they haven't faced very good ones, but they've been so much better against wide receivers. That's this week. Then you have Houston, probably start them there. Then, unless they just run all over them and throw 20 passes. Then you have a bye. Then you have New England, Arizona. They've been great against number ones, and Las Vegas. They've been great against wide receivers. They're 4th best. That's his playoff matchup. So hate the schedule for Pittman.
And he's not a sell high. He's more of like a sell. And no one's going to give up what you could have gotten a couple of weeks ago for him when he was a legitimate sell high.
He's not a buy low then. Can I say that? He's not a buy low.
I don't think so.
No, not unless you're getting him for low end flex value. I think he's probably a high end number 3 rest of the season.
Okay, that's Michael Pittman. Now, how about the 49ers situation? Do you look to trade Ayuk?
Which situation?
Do you look to trade Debo? Do you look to trade Kittle, who's been kind of low on yardage, but somehow is finding the end zone a lot? I'll point out that you really need to look at their schedule for wins and losses. Garoppolo usually throws about 40 times when he loses. Could be closer to 20 when he wins, or 25 or something. So keep that in mind. And their schedule is Minnesota, Seattle, Cincinnati, Atlanta, Tennessee in their next 5 weeks. So
those are great games.
Here's the problem. Like this, I don't know how good the 49ers are. And like half of those teams are in the range of, on a given week, the 49ers might be better or worse than them. I don't know how you project when they're going to win or lose.
Yeah, that's a good point.
It's also how good is their run game, which is something that they try and use every single week. Every team does it, but the 49ers would lean on their run game for 2/3 of their offensive snaps if they could. But if Elijah Mitchell can't play, that probably means a little bit more from Garoppolo.
So, I mean, what do you do? Like, do you think Ayuk is someone you'd look to get rid of? Or
Sure, he's definitely someone who's a sell high candidate. The schedule's great. What's his consistency in terms of targets from game to game? I can't say it's going to be particularly high. We've seen it a million times before where when all 3 of these guys are healthy, Debo and Ayuk and Kittle, that it's going to be feast or famine with usually one of them, if not 2 of them, every single week. The only reason why Debo was great last week was because of what he did as a rusher. How many targets did he have against Jacksonville?
2 or 3 or something.
Right. Like he was an amazing running back, and that's how he got his fantasy production.
Not a lot. By the way, it is narrowed. Cam Newton 53%, Joe Burrow 47%. All right, let me give you 2 more here. Mike Evans. Heath, do you still feel that way? He had what did he have, Mike Evans? Like 11 targets? I don't know. He had a big game against the Giants. And his schedule's got the Colts and the Falcons. Those are great. The Jets in week 17. But he also has the Bills. He's got Lattimore, who always does a great job on him. And he's Carolina in week 16, and they're 6th best against wide receivers. And then there's the Antonio Brown thing. So buy, sell, hold Mike Evans, Heath.
I would sell at a wide receiver 1 value. If you can get top 12 wide receiver value for him, I'd rather have that in most instances. I think he's a high-end number 2 rest of season, and he'll have some games. Like I still expect he probably has a couple games where he has 4 targets and doesn't score down the stretch. Maybe that will be New Orleans and Buffalo.
I think he's better than a high-end 2 rest of season. I think Brady's going to make his push to be MVP. He's going to throw the ball plenty against a lot of these inferior defenses. I'm fine with Heath's right about you need to expect wide receiver 1 value for Evans, but he's also going to be a wide receiver 1 rest of season. I think you only trade Evans if you're just absolutely loaded at wide receiver and you need or you need a running back badly, and someone who's loaded at running back flips you 1 for Evans.
Would you rather have Mike Evans or DK Metcalf rest of season?
Evans. He's got a quarterback with 2 working hands.
Yeah, it's probably Evans.
Antonio Gibson been very encouraged the last 2 weeks. Washington's, they got to keep playing better, right? They beat the Bucks, they beat the Panthers. There's a good wins, and you get 26 carries and 19 carries, but only 2 catches in the last 2 games. I'm specifically looking at his last 4 games before Week 18. It's Dallas twice, and it's Philadelphia twice. I think Philadelphia is becoming kind of a bad matchup now because they just dominate time of possession, and Dallas is interesting. They have a pretty bad run defense, but they don't get run on a lot. So I don't know. This is a real tricky one. Antonio Gibson, buy, sell, hold.
I think he's a hold as a number 2 running back. I don't think either of those matchups, like they might have a really good game against him or a really bad game. The Eagles and Cowboys are not run defenses that I am factoring into the projections.
It's not so much the run defense, Heath. It's the last 4 teams that have faced the Eagles since they switched their offensive strategy have averaged about 18 and a half running back carries per game, which is pretty low.
Mm-hmm.
And he just doesn't catch the ball that much. So I don't know. That's kind of where I was at with the Eagles.
Yeah. I'm not saying you're necessarily wrong. Like that could have an impact in one of those games. But it's not something I'm going to factor in.
Okay.
Again, he's the type of running back that a desperate fantasy manager might overpay for at this juncture of the year. So he's a sell high in that regard, but you need to expect decent RB2 value for him, and I think he's a number 2 running back rest of season for fantasy managers.
How about I traded Aaron Jones for Gibson as a last-ditch effort to try to stay in our St. Jude's League and lost because I traded for Gibson and started him over Devonta Freeman. If I just kept Aaron Jones and started Devonta Freeman, I would still be alive in that league.
Yeah, but you know what? I think of it this way. This is the season of giving, and you gave someone Aaron Jones, and that's really nice. And you're not going to make the playoffs, so it doesn't, you just said, hey, you can have Aaron Jones. I think what you did was great, Heath. Good job. All right. Quick look at the most traded list. I'm going to give you the top 10 most traded players. I want you to tell me buy, sell, hold. Odell Beckham.
You can't sell him for anything, so hold.
Yeah.
If anything, maybe he's a sneaky cheap buy.
Okay.
I would imagine that he's going to start getting an uptick in targets, and that's a team that loves to throw downfield, and Stafford's a more accurate passer than Baker. So I take it back. He's not a hold. He's a buy low.
Great. Odell Beckham. Gibson, we talked about. Mark Ingram, I think we got to check the injury report for today. And
you're trading for him if he can play on Thursday. And if he's not playing on Thursday, obviously you don't do anything with him.
Deandre Hopkins, love his great schedule in the fantasy playoffs.
Yep.
For what that's worth.
Do we know if he's going to be ready to go in week 13? Or are we just going to assume that the bye week is that magical time where everybody gets healthy?
We don't know, but I would hope. Yeah, I think you kind of know what you're doing there with Hopkins.
You're buying low for the playoff run.
David Montgomery, who's only had 2 good games this year, 4 games with single-digit PPR fantasy points, I believe, out of 6, and 3 touchdowns in 6 games. David Montgomery, buy, sell, hold.
Buy. I still view him as like a top 12-ish type of fantasy running back. He's a buy.
So if anybody would do it, you'd trade Devonta Freeman for him easy.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Yeah.
I'd rather have him than Gibson.
His weeks 15, 16, 17 are Minnesota. They're 23rd against running backs. Seattle, they're 30th, but improving. Giants are 26th. So good playoff schedule for Montgomery. A.J. Dillon, same thing. You kind of know what the deal is there. You need something now, trade for him, but it's only 1 week most likely because they have a bye next week, and then hopefully Jones back. Eli Mitchell, buy, sell, hold.
I think you can buy him cheap. The fact that he's not with a finger injury and it's not a knee injury or hamstring or high ankle sprain leads me to believe that he's got a real good chance, especially with Jeff Wilson not doing well against Jacksonville. I think he's got a real chance, Mitchell does, of falling right back into that lead running back role for the 49ers. And we talked about how much they love to run the ball.
Okay, 2 more. Mike Williams and Saquon Barkley.
So Tua, because you said 2 more. Mike Williams, if you can sell high, I think you should. But I don't think anybody's giving up a lot to get Mike Williams.
hold on Barkley. I think he's going to be a number 2 running back, and I think his snaps will probably go up next week, and most of his matchups won't be as bad as the Buccaneers.
Yep.
But I don't think he's going to be a number 1 running back like we were hoping either.
But I wonder if you could try buying low on Barkley. Like some people waited for Barkley to come back, and then he has this game against Tampa, and they just might say, all right, I'm out. This guy sucks. It was a bad pick. I will take Devonta Freeman and Michael Pittman and A.J. Dillon all for Saquon Barkley.
Yeah, I
and
don't
you'll
know
say,
if I'd do
great.
that.
No, of course you won't. You won't do that to get Barkley?
I don't know.
Dillon and what was it? Dillon, Pittman, what?
Dillon, Pittman, and Devonta Freeman.
Oh, I'd do that.
Maybe it's an overpay, but if my team's loaded and those guys are expendable, hell yeah, I'm doing that to get Saquon.
Say this about Dillon, though. He's not going to be useless when Aaron Jones comes back, right?
Right, but his value isn't going to be what it is for
No.
this week.
Not close. Okay, Barkley, by
His
the way,
value wasn't what it was for last week.
he had 100. He had like 100 total yards and 4 or 5 catches or
Yeah.
something.
He was okay. He didn't dominate.
Yeah.
He was okay. I
So
don't think anybody's really complaining.
right, exactly. Barkley, by the way, 5-6 catches in each of his last 3 games. I'm very interested to see what happens when Shepard's back, if that impacts that.